Meanwhile, in news overseas, Iran is expected to be one of the major topics at the G-20 meeting in Japan, where leaders of industrialized nations are meeting Friday and Saturday for an annual summit. Meanwhile, U.S. and Iranian diplomats met with European counterparts in an effort to find a solution to the political crisis that rose after the United States abandoned the 2015 international nuclear deal with Iran. U.S. tensions with Iran were also addressed at a NATO meeting in Belgium on Thursday. VOA's Latika Hope reports.
Defense ministers of NATO countries held a two-day meeting in Brussels to address key security issues, including Iran's nuclear threat. Acting U.S. Defense Secretary Mark Esper said the regime has been sowing chaos and conflict in the Middle East for 40 years and must be stopped.
Iran's hostile actions are an international problem that affect many nations. They include pursuit of nuclear weapons, a growing ballistic missile program, support for international terrorism, and assaults on freedom of navigation in the Arabian Sea, Strait of Hormuz, and the Gulf of Oman, and in international airspace, as the world saw last week.
Tensions between the United States and Iran escalated last week after Iran shot down a U.S. drone, saying it had violated its airspace. Washington denies the allegation, but says it does not want war with Iran.
The United States so clearly has stated that they don't want a war. They actually said very clearly that they're ready to talk with Iran without preconditions. And it was a message from allies today that we support efforts to de-escalate, to avoid any miscalculations, incidents, accidents, and especially that they spiral out of control and create a really dangerous situation.
Instead of a military response, Washington has opted for economic sanctions on Iran.
We are dedicated to this policy of maximum economic pressure because it's working. It is denying the regime historic levels of revenue. Their proxies around the region are hurting financially.
Iranian leaders have lashed angrily at the sanctions that have crippled their economy and are calling them an act of war.
They are using their economic power, imposing sanctions as a kind of weapons. Now we are facing a very new concept, weaponization of dollar. This is what we are facing. They use dollar as a weapon to impose their wishes, their policies on other countries, and that should be stopped.
A war with Iran has few supporters at home or abroad. French President Emmanuel Macron made that clear on arrival in Osaka.
We must achieve de-escalation in Iran and also continue the policy of securing the Korean Peninsula.
U.S. lawmakers are mulling legislation which would require congressional approval for a military strike against Iran.